Okie dokie. Here we are, Roundtable Dolphins episode number 4. I am here with my co-host Billie Melissa. I am fighting a little bit of a cold, so I may sound a little off. It's going around. It's definitely affecting me, but
It's that time of year. You
I
gotta be
know, I
safe out
know.
there, people.
Yeah, I know. And like the first go around, I was fine. I didn't really get sick, but this time around, I definitely got hit pretty hard. But
I know it comes back to get everyone after the
yeah.
victims it missed, it comes
Yeah, really
back.
though. But as they say, the show must go on. We have a lot to talk about today. A little bit of breaking news. I just jumped on to make sure that I didn't really miss anything because I have been asleep. But the Miami Dolphins are interviewing Kevin Stefanski in person today.
Ooh,
Yeah, so
not a different AFC North rival heading over to Miami, seeking the sun, wanting to leave behind the cold
yeah,
winter.
yeah, really though. Honestly, I think this is a big one. I honestly believe that this could be the coach that the Dolphins may want to bring in.
Mhm.
I respect Kevin Stefanski. He did have a lot of trouble, obviously, with the Browns there, but it's the Browns. He had a very similar kind of trajectory, a rather similar head coaching experience like Mike McDaniel did. Like the
Mhm.
first 2 seasons or whatever, they were good, and then things kind of went downhill, but
Yeah.
you can't really fault Kevin Stefanski for that all the way.
No, he's
At
in
least,
demand around the league. People have been requesting him left and right. I know the Ravens interviewed him. I think he's been with some other teams too. So, can't
yeah,
fault the credentials.
no, definitely not. I think he's a good coach. He was a good coach for what he was given. And I felt the same way about Mike McDaniel, but as the league goes, you have to make changes, and that's what happened to Mike McDaniel. And he's been going all over the place, or rather, he will be going all over the place with interviews himself.
Hmm.
Funny enough, the Ravens are requested him as well, and today I believe he's interviewing for the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator position. So I do think it's kind of interesting that he's not taking himself out of that in terms of finding a coordinator position. A lot of people
Yeah.
said that he would land as a coordinator more so than a head coach. I didn't really believe that all the way. I thought he would get a lot of head coach opportunities as well. But at the very least, like if all else fails, he can go and be the OC for the Lions or whoever else.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with him, isn't it? He's got versatility. He can definitely slot in on any team, and they would be lucky and only better for having him. I think he has had a couple head coaching opportunities. Is it maybe the Falcons were having a look, and I think maybe some other teams. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see because I think like John Harbaugh in a way, he'll kind of have a bit more of a selection to see where he ends up next.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as we've been talking about in our other pods and everything, like there's so many good candidates that like nobody is rushing at all. I haven't seen anybody like there hasn't been any there's been very few in-person interviews. Everybody's doing virtual stuff, obviously because the playoffs. A lot of the
Yeah.
candidates from the teams in the playoffs, they can now interview virtually. They can't do it until the in person until the playoffs wrap up. But one of the other big ones is Jesse Minter, the DC for the Los Angeles Chargers. He's going to start
And
doing
now the
it.
Chargers are out,
But
so
yeah, the Chargers are
he's
out.
got some time.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But that leads us into another really interesting candidate. Apart from, I mean, Kevin Stefanski was already well known. We did the virtual, but now he's doing in person, which is a good next step. That means like
Mhm.
obviously the Dolphins want to take a bigger look at Kevin Stefanski. Honestly, I wouldn't hate Kevin Stefanski at all as the next head coach of the Dolphins. His resume speaks for itself. Like I said, I feel like he's a very well respected coach among his players. Has been, he just needed a change. But anyway, moving right on. One of the more interesting interviews I didn't really
Mm.
expect to happen was the Dolphins requested to interview Detroit Lions defensive coordinator Kelvin Sheppard. Sheppard, interesting enough, did play for the Miami Dolphins as a linebacker.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's really interesting. I think he's a good coach. And I think it's really quick, if I'm being honest. So he played from the 2011 to 2018 seasons as a linebacker for the Bills, Colts, Dolphins, Giants, Bears, Lions. He was all over the place.
He's been around the town.
Yeah, definitely. But then once he wrapped up his playing career, just 2 years later after that, he got hired by LSU to be the director of player development.
Mm.
Then that led into him returning to the Lions as the outside linebackers coach in 2021. the linebackers coach in 2022 to 2024, and then finally the defensive coordinator last season. Um, but I'm not saying that he's not the kind of coach that could come out of nowhere because, as we talked about John Harbaugh, he was special teams, and
Yeah.
like look what happened with him. So I just think it's really quick. Like he went boom, boom, boom. First year coordinator into a head coach position, I feel is kind of quick. Um,
Maybe he made an impression on Ross while he was in Miami. Maybe he remembers something that like we don't know about. But I think he had a good this season with the Lions defense this year. I think obviously they had injuries and so you always have to take that into account. But I think was it, there wasn't any like standout stats for him. So it is interesting when you brought up to me that was he was coming in to have a look. But I think sometimes when teams have relationships and connections with coaches in the past or players in the past, they kind of see something that maybe other people don't see.
yeah, definitely. I mean, so I'm on Fox Sports looking at defensive rankings, and the Lions were ranked 18th, and that's not
Hmm.
terrible considering the injuries they did have.
Yeah,
For some
exactly.
for some very weird reason, the last 2 or 3 seasons, the Lions defense just was just decimated by injuries. Like, there's so many players that were on IR, so many players that they lost. Like, I don't know what it is, but
I know it's a
um,
shame because they have massive potential. Even this year, like it's a shame, especially seeing from where they came from last year, or even 2 years ago. Like, you have to root for the Lions. Like you want good things for them. They're good guys.
yeah, definitely. I mean, Dan Campbell, coach for the Dolphins, he was the interim head coach at one point, and I love Dan Campbell. I'm like, dude,
Hmm.
that guy, like, you can see why players would run through a wall for him, like, definitely. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Maybe Stephen Ross did see something from Shepherd. I mean, remembering him as a player, and now he's a coach. I mean, there's a reason why he's risen up the ranks in coaching so quickly, and I am
Hmm.
a very big fan of former players going into coaching. More and more of that is
Yeah.
starting to happen, and I like that because it's like obviously these guys are running, they're in the game, and then they're like, okay, well, I have the eye for it. I'm gonna teach other
Yeah,
players
it's
how to
like
do that.
Anthony Weaver in the with the Dolphins as well. Like obviously he connected with the defense and Zach Orr in Baltimore was a former player for the Ravens and come back to, I think it's nice when guys get to continue their, passing on the lessons. And I think like also with Shepherd having been there in 2014, 2015. It's not too long ago of a disconnect that, the game's changed that much. Like I think he has kind of caught up with where the game is at and probably has a lot of wisdom to part. What's your feeling? Like, do you think maybe he's likely to get the job, or do you think they're heading down a different direction?
For who? Sorry.
Do you think Shepherd will get this job, or do you think
Honestly, I don't know. I think it's a really intriguing candidate, but I'm a little worried because of like past coaches that were the I for me, I feel like the Dolphins have given enough chances to first time head coaches, and that's not
sure
worked out really well. And that
you're
doesn't
looking for
mean
established?
right. That doesn't mean that that's going to happen every time. Like we said, obviously John Harbaugh, 18 years later, now he's barely looking for his next job. So I'm not saying that can't happen. I just think with the experience that is now offered through these other candidates, I think
Yeah,
they should probably go for somebody more well established, especially too. I don't know. I don't know that the Dolphins should get a defensive minded coach. They had Mike McDaniel, so obviously they're gonna do their due diligence and look at the other side of the ball. But I don't know. I'm a little, I'm a little like, ugh, it's just there's so many what ifs right now with the Dolphins that's kind of concerning to me in the sense of like the major thing is the quarterback
hmm.
situation. Like, what are the Dolphins gonna do? What are the
What's going
Dolphins
on
doing?
there?
Yeah, are they gonna get rid of Tua? Are they gonna try to? Is somebody gonna even be crazy enough to trade for Tua? That's not a knock against Tua. I believe he might be able to come back at some point in his career. I think he's probably
Hmm.
going to still stay at the backup level for maybe a couple seasons. Maybe he works his way back into a starting role, similar to like Sam Darnold. Maybe. I mean, I don't think he's ever going to be
Or Joe
Sam.
Flacco.
Yeah, or Joe Flacco type of deal. Maybe. You don't know, but um,
One's
I
got a
think
Super Bowl though.
right, right. I mean, this goes right into the John Harbaugh sweepstakes. Like so reports have said that he did preliminary talks with multiple teams, the Dolphins being one of them. At which point that was the Dolphins' chance to pitch to him, as are the other teams. That's how prolific John Harbaugh is. Like they're calling teams are calling to give him their pitches as opposed to
The
like him.
pitch just to talk to them. They're like,
Right,
Harbs, here's what we've got.
right. But I mean, that makes sense because it's John Harbaugh.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean, come on. But I don't know. Again, these are all just reports. This is all just stuff that's on, through insiders, what everyone's saying. We don't really know what's happening with John Harbaugh except for John Harbaugh. But
Yeah.
he, there's been multiple instances of them talking about he's paying attention to the quarterback situation. If he were to come to the
Hmm.
Dolphins, there's no quarterback situation, and I don't know that that would appeal to him. So there was reports that he's looking at Jackson Dart. We brought this up before. He's looking at Jackson Dart in the Giants, which is the open position, and then Cam Ward of the Tennessee Titans, which also makes
Yeah.
sense. Those are two young and dynamic quarterbacks that you can mold. Obviously similar to he had Lamar Jackson.
Hmm.
Obviously that
Traded
ran
up for him. Well,
right
EDC traded up for him, but yeah.
that ran its course. But now,
Hmm.
he probably wants to go to another situation where he's like, okay, they're gonna have an established quarterback that I can then do what I did with Lamar Jackson and get the best out of them. You come to
Mm.
the Dolphins, you don't have that. You don't have any of that. You have Quinn Ewers, who he had 3 games and he did okay. He did decent enough, but you don't have anything besides that. And there's maybe the Dolphins go and draft Ty Simpson. I don't know.
Hmm.
Maybe they go
Yeah.
and there's been a lot of talk of them trying to go after Malik Willis, which I think would be
I
great.
think would be such the correct move for
Right.
them.
Right. And that would be great, but like are the Packers going to give up Malik Willis? What do you have to give up to get Malik Willis? Like
Hmm.
there's so many factors right now with the Dolphins that I think like I don't think someone like John Harbaugh is going to want to come in and have to answer all those questions. There was also reports that Albert Breer, who's one of the biggest insiders with Sports Illustrated, he was talking about this, and he was the one that reported that John Harbaugh had preliminary talks. He hasn't had in-person interviews with anybody yet. He's going to
Yeah.
start doing those this week, but he said that the Dolphins, or rather Harbaugh, the Dolphins are not looking for an all-powerful coach. They're looking for a coach. And I think that kind of matches up with what's been going on in the sense of like they don't want to give John Harbaugh all the power.
They want to give him the keys to the car and he wants those keys. I've seen, obviously, you never know, like you said, what's going on, but like I've seen the demands, I've seen the list of demands and what he's after. And like it seems like he's coming in with the complete like redesign idea. Like, I want to be at the top, I want to be the one that's kind of calling the shots here. And he deserves it and he would do well with it. So I think, maybe the Dolphins saw that that wasn't really going to align with them. That might be why they picked up their GM already. There could be many factors, but we never know. We never know because things happen. Just like a wild card weekend, we saw how crazy that got
Yeah,
unexpectedly. Like the NFL is what it is. So, anything could happen really.
no, you're right. Exactly. That's exactly right. But I think too, like again, this is all just, smoke screens. This is all just rumors and reports that we
Hmm.
keep reading about all that stuff. But I think you're right. I think the timing of picking up or hiring John Eric Sullivan as opposed to going and getting Chad Alexander, who was
Hmm.
supposed to match up with Harbaugh, I think you're right. I think that kind of not proves, but it kind of maybe leans into the theory that the Dolphins don't want to give John Harbaugh or give anybody the
Or anyone
keys.
in, yeah.
Yeah, give anybody the keys to the kingdom. They have to work with the GM because the Dolphins, have struggled so long with roster issues that they need a GM that has the resume that John Eric Sullivan has to build this team up through the draft. And you have to, in my opinion, I think the Dolphins are going to clean house a little bit more heading into next season. I think also the pitch, or rather the conversation with whoever it is that's going to be the next head coach is going to be okay. You have to understand that 2026 is not going to be a good season, and not like that they're not going to try to win games. I just think that
Mhm.
it would be smart for them to gut the roster for 2027.
Yeah. I think that they have to see kind of, again with the quarterback situation, whether they can pick up Malik Willis, whether they're going to have to stick it out with Tua, see, give someone else a go, see what happens. I think that there's a lot of possibilities, and that's probably what John Eric Sullivan and Stephen Ross are having conversations about right now is like, what is the direction? Because I imagine John Eric Sullivan is probably having a little bit more of a say in like who is coming in for those head coach opportunities, who he wants to rebuild with. I think, Kevin Stefanski has experience of doing something like that through the Browns. I think it would be really sad for Dolphins fans to have to wait another year for some kind of success, but maybe worth the wait, maybe worth sticking it out, see what you can kind of plays you can kind of trade away, see what you can do about that cap situation. And yeah, I don't know, it may be quite another little heartbreaking season for them. But I hope not. I hope we get, that unexpected Dolphins comeback.
I mean, honestly, you're right. It's frustrating, covering the Dolphins and all that and seeing that and for the fan base for sure, absolutely. But
There's so much potential there that it's almost like it should have happened already. And it did happen a couple of years ago.
yeah,
And then it just hasn't seemed to kind of pick up then. So I think like Tua obviously getting so many injuries and dangerous injuries that that's almost kind of overshadowed the narrative of the Dolphins in a way that they haven't got their time to shine in the light just yet.
yeah, no, definitely. I think you're right. That was the biggest thing that I talked about when launching this podcast earlier. When Tua got benched, is he kept saying that his injuries didn't impact him, but I think that's not true. I
It's
mean, he got
impossible for it
yeah,
to be true.
right. No, right. I mean, he suffered a really bad ankle and hip injury in college, comes over, does decent, but then multiple concussions, and he brought up his ankle earlier in the season, and then he wasn't doing good. He had no more
Mhm.
zip on his ball, and if it's an ankle issue and you can't throw off your lead foot, there you go. But whatever, that's that's another conversation. But
Mm,
you're right. I think the main thing here is the Dolphins need to reset. So I
yeah.
think the fan base is fine with them not being good in 2026 for a better 2027. I mean, this is what a true
And
reset.
beyond.
This is what, yeah, exactly. This is what a true reset is supposed to do. The Dolphins have
Mhm.
always done a half measure. They've either gotten rid of a head coach but kept Chris Greer, or there was dangerous waters there where they got rid of Chris Greer, almost kept Mike McDaniel. But then you just look at it and go, okay, so what? Why keep doing these half measures? I was very shocked that Ross had gotten rid of a lot of front office executives past Chris Greer. And I was like, okay, maybe this is going to be an actual full reset. You bring in John Eric Sullivan, and now you have to bring in a new head coach. But again, like
Mhm.
I think the conversation there is like you have to look at the roster with this next head coach, along with Sullivan working together and going, okay, like who do we want to keep? Obviously, you maybe want to keep a Devon Achan. You want to keep him for sure. You want to keep a Jordan Brooks because he the lead tackler. That dude was insane, all pro linebacker. Those are like foundational pieces on the offense, on the defense. Like Aaron Brewer, you want to keep your Pro Bowlers, you want to keep your All Pros, which there's only a few this season for the Dolphins. And then everybody else you kind of take a look at. Like, to be honest, I love I love Jalen Waddle. I think he's great. But I think I was very shocked he was not traded at the deadline, and I would not be
Mhm.
shocked if he's traded ahead of the 2026 season. He benefits greatly from having that second wide receiver next to him, and with Tyreek Hill out, like he still did decent, but his numbers didn't do as well. And so I think he's one of those players that's still up there in terms of value. You can probably get a good second rounder, second, third rounder for him. That's one of the players you got to consider moving. You got to consider moving quite a bit of players just because it's like, well, I don't know. I just don't think that the roster in its current state. I don't know. See, it's
Yeah.
it's it's tough because they went on a 6-3 run at the end of the season under Mike McDaniel, even without Tua. Like Tua a little bit, but mostly it was the defense that was helping out. And Devon Achad was having an incredible season. He finished fifth in rushing yards. He had like over 1,500 all-purpose or scrimmage yards rather. Um, so it's
Imagine
kind
what
of
he could do with the right, surrounding pieces
I
that could
I
be, even better.
I agree with that, and there was issues with the offensive line. Jonas Salvanea was
Yeah.
the worst offensive lineman in the league. Like, mind you, in the league,
Poor
like
guy.
dead ranked in PFF. Like, just he was not good. He was just getting pancaked left and
Yeah.
right, and he was a rookie that was made a starter and didn't get better. Like that
Hmm.
was like the craziest thing to me. But then you look at the depth that the Dolphins have. They had no depth. They had no other person that they could have possibly put in there that would have relieved him of starting duties. So it's like
Hmm.
these are all just the things that you have to look at, that Sullivan's going to look at. You're right, with the next head coach. They're going to look at this together. And I don't think that 2026 should be a good year for the Dolphins. Like, it could be. I could be shocked. We could both be
Yeah.
shocked. Like, oh my God, like, you look what happened. They went um case in point, they went 1-15 in 2007, and then they went 11-5 and won the division in 2008. And that was because Brady got hurt. Let's be real, but whatever. The point being, they won
Always
the
helps when Brady
yeah, he tore his
helps the
ACL.
league when Brady
You're
gets.
right. He tore his ACL, and I was like, "This is our time," and they won. Whatever. So
Yeah.
the point being, like, there's been teams that have gone from 0 to 100 in a
Mhm.
year's time, and that's all great and well if that does happen. But I just think right now, the way the roster is right now, the contract situations and the cap space that the Dolphins are in, I think you have to make changes. I think you have to make sweeping changes, and they're already starting that with the front office down to the coaching staff. The next is going to be the roster.
Yeah, I mean, John and Eric Sullivan has only been part of like a mostly winning organization. I think he knows what to do. I think he knows the pieces I think he knows how to put the puzzle together. It's just like grabbing each of those pieces and finding a way to get it together. He's had great quarterbacks in his, he hasn't known any different other than great quarterbacks up until leaving the Packers. And so I think he's going to be great at kind of identifying that maybe out of the draft, maybe around the league, maybe there's some backups like Malik Willis that, he can go grab, or maybe not even he's not even looking in that direction and is kind of doing what you say. I don't know too much about the quarterback draft situation. I don't think 2026 has been slated as a wonderful year. I think
It's
2027
not.
is more the year people are
Yeah, it
looking
is.
towards. Like Arch Manning, I think people obviously very excited about him, and a bunch of others. But yeah, maybe he is waiting for that quarterback piece to kind of slot everything together. But then, you wonder if that's going to frustrate your team if they're going to be patient enough to wait for another year, or if they're going to want to kind of be asking for trade situations. Um, it could upset some players.
I mean, definitely. I mean, but especially like I said, Jalen Waddle is going into, I believe he's going to be going into his fifth year with the Dolphins in 2026. I could be wrong about that. Let me see. I want to say he was 2021.
Mm,
So yeah, I mean, and I understand that completely. Yeah, this would be his sixth season
yeah,
in 2026.
yeah.
I understand that completely. That's always going to be a frustration for players, especially with Dolphins players. It's like you have to,
Especially with good Dolphins players who can
right,
quite frankly go get some money elsewhere.
right, definitely. I mean, that's just the nature of the business, though. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like that happens to every single player. That happens all the time. But um, look at Miles Garrett. Miles Garrett wanted to trade, and then they threw a bunch of money at
Got his
him.
money and he stayed.
And he stayed, right? And now he got the sack record, so good on him, right?
But does
But
Miami have the money to pay?
nope. That's the thing.
Exactly.
That's the thing is they don't. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I believe that the roster is going to get gutted heading into the 2026
For
season for
sure.
that simple reason. Like you got players, like you said, like the players that are not going to be happy sticking around. But you pay the right players. Like Jordan Brooks should get an extension ASAP. Aaron Brewer should get an extension ASAP. Like those dudes were insane in 2025. And you have the makings of a good offensive line because you still have Patrick Paul, who's going to be going into his third year. He's fantastic. You have foundational pieces that you can keep around that are either already under a contract, you extend them, you get them in the building, you keep them in the building through to the 2027 season, and
Mhm.
then you readjust and you see where you're at. But like I said, at Waddle, again, I don't want them to trade Waddle, but I would not
No,
be
of
shocked
course
if they
not.
did trade Waddle because he's the kind
You
of
can
player
pick up
that,
something for that.
yeah, you get a lot of value out of Waddle right now, and several other players. Like I honestly hope they don't trade HN, but I would understand it as well because I mean, look at what happened when they did with Laremy Tunsil. Laremy Tunsil was the best offensive lineman in the league, and they traded him for two first round picks to the Texans. Who would pass that up? You know what I mean? Same
Mhm.
situation, and then that led to Waddle getting picked up. That led to other players. That led to landing Tyreek Hill. Obviously, that's going to be a different situation, but still, the point being, you have to look to the future right now. And you're right. I don't think aside from Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza, who are the top two picks, no matter what, there's nobody else that's really like that good. Ty Simpson, like I said, is one of those quarterbacks that now has been attached to the Dolphins because they're
Mhm.
at pick number 11 and he's in that range.
Yeah.
So they may want to move up and grab him, but at the same time, he has a lot of similar traits to he has a lot of concerns in the sense of his arm talent, but the, I don't know the profile well, so I don't want to speak too much on it. But from what
Mhm.
I'm understanding, is like it's another quarterback where people are like, like he's good, but his arm isn't the best. And I think the Dolphins have had enough of his arm isn't the best. They need to
Yeah.
find somebody whose arm is the best. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like there's too many of the like they're taking a flyer on this person, that person, and I think they need to kind of step back away from that. And it goes to the head coach too. Like that's why
Mhm.
I like Kelvin Sheppard. I think he's very talented. That would be great. But I think that he's one of those coaches where you don't take a flyer on right now.
Yeah. Conscious of making the same mistakes twice and not wanting to kind of just end up in the same position that you've remained in, and then made all those decisions and pissed some people off in the process.
Right, right. And the fact of the matter is, yes, the Dolphins did well under Mike McDaniel the first two seasons. They went to the playoffs, but they didn't win a playoff game. And that's really ultimately the goal here. That's the goal
Yeah.
for any team. That's not like a controversial statement to make. Like anybody wants to win a playoff game and go to the Super Bowl. That's the entire purpose
That's the
of,
point.
yeah,
And if
but
you don't sell seats and you piss off the city and you piss off the owner and then, you piss off Roger Goodell and it all just goes up in flames
right,
from there.
right. But and that's the thing though, is like Dolphins fans are very loyal in the sense that like
Yeah.
there was still people that were there at every single game and there still will be. But
Well, I mean, you had the Bear Stadium on Saturday night, was it? It was electric, and they haven't
yeah.
been it means something to when
Oh
you
yeah,
get to that point.
definitely.
So, they're going to rally around you no matter what. And I want that for the Dolphins. I want to see them have that kind of
Yeah.
comeback and feel great again.
Yeah, definitely. But again, like that's what a full reset is supposed to do, and the Dolphins haven't done a full reset in over 10 years. It's time. It's
Yeah.
time to stop pulling the punches and it's time to just let it go and just, like they already started, like I said, I was very impressed with the fact that they did get rid of Mike McDaniel. I wanted them to for that reason because I'm like, you can't have a half measure. It's going to be the same. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
like Mike McDaniel could benefit from going somewhere else and yada yada, all that down the line. Um, but yeah, you just have to make foundational changes from the top to the bottom, and
Yeah.
that starts with they already got John Eric Sullivan. They're gonna bring in maybe a Kevin Stefanski. I don't know who they're gonna bring in. I'm gonna be very shocked if it's John Harbaugh. I don't believe John Harbaugh is gonna be the Dolphins' next head coach.
No, I've heard he's even getting like well, of course, again, rumors, but like even head coach positions that are in the playoffs and have just lost in the playoffs, I feel like
Oh
gives
yeah,
him some
oh
kind
yeah,
of opportunity there.
yeah. The
Tomlin, is your job safe? I don't know. John's coming for
I mean, no, that's true. I mean, I firmly
Packers,
believe.
Matt LaFleur.
Yeah, I mean, there was reports that teams with head coaches installed were contacting him, and why wouldn't you? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, there's teams that like, they're middle of the pack teams that haven't really got over that hump yet. So it's like, of course, why would you not be interested in John Harbaugh? But yeah, the point going back to my point is like the Dolphins haven't won a playoff game in 25 years, the longest streak, and it's because of those half measures. It's because they continually put themselves in this cycle of like, okay, it's gonna be better next season. It's gonna be better next season. When really just tear it all down and then build it back up the correct way. And especially like you said with Sullivan, he's been part of a winning franchise, yeah, definitely. But the Packers have always been good when it
Hmm.
comes to the draft. They've always been good when it comes to landing free agents. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's had the benefit of Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and Jordan Love,
Jordan.
which is just not what the Dolphins have had since Marino retired. But at the same time, he gets that clean slate to be like, okay, you have 20 years experience with a winning team. How do you bring that over, or what are you going to do to bring that over to then, make the Dolphins a winner? So
Yeah, I think he knows how to go after those and he knows what's missing and he'll be able to identify that. And I think, what are you thinking if not quarterback in the first round? What kind of position do you think they're going for behind that?
I mean, honestly, they got to go cornerback. They got to go offensive line.
Could they
Those are
trade? Do they have the ability to go shopping?
I don't even know at this point. Like I gotta see. I don't even know what their cap hit is right now. Let's see. Um, let's use the old internet right now to check this out. It's not gonna be good. I know that for a fact. So right now they are third from the bottom, 20 minus 24 million is what their cap is right now for the 2026 season.
Mm.
So no, they don't. They are in cap hell.
They got to
Uh,
make do.
that's the thing that they were like this last season, and it's because the contracts they were given. Like Tyreek Hill has a 51 million cap hit himself, which they're going to either have to cut him or he's going to have to readjust his contract greatly. And
Same
then they
with
got
Tua.
two. And then they got Tua. Yeah, Tua is like ridiculous. So it's like, yeah, but you again, we talked about this. You look at the Broncos and look at what they did with Russell Wilson.
Hmm.
Maybe a similar situation. You eat it now, and like I said, you prepare for 2026 not to be the year for you to be able to pick up free agents, not for you to be able to make deals, and you look towards 2027, which, like you brought up, is a better. It's supposed to be the better class for quarterbacks. There's rumors that Dante Moore might not even go to the NFL, that he might stay at Oregon or he might stay in college. I don't know how true. I could be way wrong on that, but
There's
that's what I.
always rumors. Who knows?
Right,
Until the draft happens, who knows?
right. Like, and so if he does, then he becomes the number one guy in 2027, right along with Arch
Hmm.
Manning and whoever else is there. So, right now, I just don't think because of all of the negatives with the Dolphins right now, their cap situation and all of that. I just, yeah, I. But anyway, going back to your original question, cornerback for sure. Um, they had they had multiple injuries. Storm Duck, Kader Kohu, both were lost for the season before the season even began, and that killed the
Hmm.
entire secondary. But interesting enough, they brought in Rasul Douglas, and Rasul Douglas played amazing. So it's like we found somebody, but you still need those other pieces. So I think they're going to go maybe cornerback or maybe offensive line again, which I think they should. I think the
Hmm.
main thing has always been you need to solidify that offensive line, and they kind of did it. Like I said, like I brought up Aaron Brewer and I brought up Patrick Paul. They have some pieces there, but solidify that this season or
Hmm.
for 2026. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Lots to be looking at. I wouldn't want John Eric Sullivan's job right now.
No,
I don't want to
no,
be having to figure all that out, but I'm glad that they have someone who, has the skill set, has the knowledge, and probably is going to be able to clean this up. It may just take a while, so Dolphins fans, be a little bit more patient. Just
yeah.
one more year of patience.
Yeah, but I think that's the main thing too, and I think that's why someone like John Eric Sullivan takes this job is because you're starting with nothing. You got,
Yeah, it's
you
attractive,
got,
isn't it? You
yeah,
got
and
foundations to do what you want
that, and
as
also
much as
it's
you can.
yeah, and the challenge of it as well. Like you've been
Hmm.
working your way up to being a GM. He's
Yeah,
never been a GM. He's been an assistant GM, but that doesn't mean he's not like he's helped Packers for sure all the way through. But
yeah.
the
Now he
point
gets
being,
to prove
like,
himself.
yeah, it's your show now. This is your roster. You'll be looked at genius if you can somehow finagle it together to turn the Dolphins into a winner,
Hmm.
but it's all on you.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe
Um,
he obviously come in the room and prove that to them, and they obviously feel like he's the right guy. So, it's a lot to look forward to.
Definitely. I mean, there's a lot of, again, thankfully, not thankfully, but kind of thankfully that this all happened because we have so much more to talk about as the weeks progress. Like,
Yeah.
maybe next week we'll finally talk about whoever got hired as a head coach. I don't know if it's going to even take that, it's going to be that quick because it's just,
Hmm.
like I said, nobody's rushing for obvious reasons. And then, we start looking towards free agency and maybe the Dolphins make some moves. Maybe they don't make any. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. This is all going to be up to John Eric Sullivan, working alongside whoever the next head coach is to try to find those bargain deals and see what happens. But there's a lot more to talk about. Thank you guys for listening. This has been Roundtable Dolphins episode 4. Thank you, Billy, for joining me again. We will be back next week. I'm going to go to bed.
As you should.